Ask most commercial real estate principals how they think about property management in their business, and you'll get some version of the same answer. PM keeps the lights on. It's the stable income. It's what pays the bills between deals getting done, because sales and leasing is where the real money is made. I want to spend today's episode making the case for the fact that I believe this framing is kind of backwards. And the way that most commercial real estate principals think about their rent roll as the support act, as the background income, as the thing that keeps ticking over, is costing them more than they realize. This is episode 280 of Commercial Real Estate Leadership. I'm your host, Darren Prokobiak. I help commercial real estate principals to build an agency that can run without them, so they have the choice to work on or off the tools. Most commercial real estate agencies are really two businesses running under the same roof, and most principals treat them as one. The first business is the transactions one, sales and leasing. You prospect and pitch leads to win listings. You complete transactions and then you earn commission. The revenue might be a little bit lumpy. It depends on the market. It depends on when deals settle. And it depends quite a lot on the people who are doing the finding, which in some agencies is primarily the principal. The second business is the management one, the rent roll, properties under management, where you put tenants into properties, you renew leases, you collect income every single month, and for that you charge a management fee every single month, month after month. Revenue is much more predictable in this business. It doesn't depend on whether a deal settles this month. It doesn't depend on the market being active. It compounds quietly in the background and it keeps doing so whatever the principal is doing at the time. Now, these two businesses have completely different financial profiles, very different risk profiles as well, and quite different value to a buyer. Most principals know this at some level, but the way that they allocate their time and attention doesn't really reflect it. So let me put a number on this, because I think this number is more persuasive than any argument I can make. And you know these numbers, it's just that you might not have your attention on them. So let's point them out clearly right now. If your sales and leasing team writes $1 million in GCI in a year, what is that business worth to a buyer? The unfortunate truth is that on its own, it's worth virtually nothing, because a buyer looking at that business knows that the revenue is tied to the agents in it and it's not recurring. The revenue is dependent on the relationships and the reputation and the activity of the individuals who are generating it. When those people leave or when the principal steps back, the revenue goes with them. There's no asset there. There's just income that exists as long as the right people keep showing up and doing the right thing. Now compare that to a rent roll generating $1 million in management income each year. That business is worth something in the order of $3 million to a buyer. Yes, there are certain variables that impact what it's worth. I won't get into that today, but let's just assume a 3 times multiple. The revenue is recurring and the income keeps coming in whether or not the principal is involved. That's what a buyer is paying for, not the income itself. They're paying for the reliability and transferability of the income. So you have two parts of the same business. One generates $1 million in revenue and is worth almost nothing to a buyer. And the other generates $1 million in revenue and is worth probably about $3 million to a buyer. And most principals spend the majority of their time on the first one. That's a misplaced priority. And once you see this clearly, I think it's pretty hard to unsee. So why does this keep happening? Why do principals who understand the valuation difference still end up allocating most of their time and energy on the sales and leasing side of the business? I reckon there are 3 main reasons, and they are more or less, they make sense, right? So let's look at them. The first one is identity. Most commercial real estate principals came up through the ranks as agents. They built their career on prospecting owners, winning listings and closing deals. That's where their skills are the sharpest. That's where the deal junkie in them lives. Doing a transaction feels like important work. Growing a rent roll feels unfamiliar and a bit more like administration. The second reason is feedback speed. A transaction produces a commission check. You can feel the results and it comes much sooner. Property management growth is slower. You add one management, then another, then another. There is a real compounding effect going on, but it's not really visible immediately. Most commercial real estate principals are wired to chase the fast feedback loop, and sales and leasing revenue delivers that much better than rent roll growth does. The third reason is that property management often grows without being deliberately managed. Tenants placed through leasing transactions convert to a management. The new owners of properties that agents sell can then become a property management client. Referrals and repeat business are other common sources of property management growth. This means that the rent roll adds management semi-automatically, which makes it easy to treat as something that will grow on its own if you just keep doing deals that you know and love doing. Now, I'm not arguing with that fact. Property management does grow this way, and it's a perfectly legitimate way to grow a property management rent roll, but it's just not as fast as it could grow if someone was actually focused on it. Now, none of these three reasons I've given are flaws. They're completely rational responses to the way commercial real estate agencies have always been run, but they produce a consistent outcome. The asset that builds long-term wealth gets treated as the support act, while the activity that produces immediate income but doesn't generate any enterprise value or a big payday in the future still gets most of the attention. So what's the alternative here? I'm not suggesting that principals should just walk away from doing deals. That's where a lot of their value lies, and it's what funds the business in the short term. What I am suggesting is that property management growth gets treated as a deliberate strategy, not as a byproduct of doing other things. Deliberate rent roll growth looks like a few specific things. Let's identify them. It looks like having a clear target for how many new managements you want to add each month and tracking it the way that you track deal flow, your pipeline in sales and leasing. Not just celebrating when new managements come in, but actively pursuing them. It looks like recognizing that every leasing and sales transaction is a PM opportunity. Some principals and most agents do the sales and leasing deal and move on. A deliberate approach treats the transaction as the introduction and the management relationship as the goal. It looks like having someone in the business whose job includes property management business development, not just managing what's already there, but going out and finding new properties to bring under management. Whether that's the principal themselves, a dedicated BDM, or a department head who has been given that mandate, it doesn't matter, but it should be somebody. There are other strategies like winbacks, which is just targeting former clients, targeting certain segments of owners, such as those who self-manage, or having a specific referral strategy. This is about making the investment case to yourself clearly. Every management you add to the rent roll isn't just adding revenue. At a 3x multiple, it's adding $3 of enterprise value for every dollar of annual income. If a property generates $5,000 a year in management fees, you've just added $15,000 to the value of your business. That's not a metaphor. That's the multiple a buyer will pay. I've got to say, I'm constantly surprised by how many principals have never done that calculation for their own business. But once they do, the question often stops being, should I focus more on PM? And it becomes, how much faster can I grow it? Your rent roll is the asset. Everything else is just income. That's not to make you feel bad about doing deals. Deals are a great source of income, and it's where a lot of great commercial real estate careers have been built. But if you want a business that has enduring value beyond your involvement in it, the rent roll is where that value lives. And the principals who build serious wealth from the sale of their businesses are the ones who have figured that out early and that build the rent roll deliberately rather than by accident. If you want to walk through what a more deliberate approach to growing your rent roll looks like in your business, where the opportunities are, what the right structure is, how to build it while you can still do the deals that you love if you want to stay on the tools rather than instead of it, I'd like to have that conversation. You can find me on LinkedIn, Darren Krakowiak. It's in the show notes. Send me a message. Tell me a bit about where your business is right now, and I will get back to you personally. That is our episode for today. Thank you so much for listening, and I will speak to you soon.